Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, the latest episode of iZombie, as well as the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each respective shows. So for example, if you don't want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of The Flash, you can skip to what I had to say about this week's episode of iZombie and or the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, the first thing I want to talk about in this episode is the latest episode of Flash. Third time me doing that intro, and I still screwed it up a little bit. Nevertheless, very, very good episode of The Flash. I knew we were obviously at the tail end of the season. Wasn't expecting them to make it this episode that is going down. It's like the clock is struck. Iris has 24 hours until things play out and she dies. Multiple things I thought was kind of interesting right from the beginning, that Savitar wasn't all that concerned about the canon and stuff like that. I guess certain things is kind of it's one of those things, it's one of the episodes where it's it fills in a lot of gaps, explain certain things, they probably never, who's to say, because things did change from In the Vision, because in the Vision what we saw was, I know I'm skipping to the ahead, but obviously at the top we had HR with the gun pointed down on Savitar, but obviously in this episode we saw it was Joe. But also Iris didn't have a ring. Well, maybe that's because Barry didn't propose to her in any other that alternate future. But obviously she took her ring off and gave it to Joe. So maybe that's something that always stayed the same. Maybe she always gave the ring to Joe to give to Barry, just in case something happened. Obviously we got a different perspective there because Tracy was there, but obviously that's me kind of talking about the tail end of it. So it's just kind of interesting to me how it kind of played out like that. And I also appreciate it because even though it wasn't really Killer Frost talking, it was more so Caitlin talking to Savitar. Even though mentioning the last time him and Barry kind of bumped heads, in a last episode when he bumped heads, it ended up causing his suit to get a little damaged. So maybe that's something. I definitely get the feeling that's going to come into play. I'll go ahead and skip to say it is. There's that whole scene with HR at the very end. Obviously he sees the blade from Savitar. I was thinking that maybe that was going to be playing a part in this episode, but it's no, maybe that's alluding to the fact is because we know his suit's damaged. Maybe HR will get in close enough to do something, because HR, obviously throughout the episode he kind of feels useless because because at the beginning he was feeling good and everything because it's obviously he's I'm not that useful, but I came to this earth and I found a family. They kind of you brought me in. Obviously I'm not the smartest person, but I help with situations. I help inspire, kind of help everyone kind of be put in the right direction. And he's basically asking Tracy to kind of become a part of Team Flash. And I appreciate the fact that he got on all knees. Both knees, and he got down on one knee. I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry. And Tracy was I was do you actually think it's no, Tracy wasn't thinking oh he would propose or anything, but it's just will you honor me by becoming a member of Team Flash? She's I would. I was it's so cute because it's for him it's he found someone that kind of completes him. But when it was all said and done, he ended up kind of dropping the ball a little bit, and Savitar ended up finding out where Iris was hidden at. And so because of that, things play out the way they did at the end of the episode, but it's he blamed himself because he's I'm useless, I'm an idiot. The fact of the matter is I like to pretend I'm of some use, but I'm not. And I let not just you down, I let everyone down. It's because of me that Iris is in her respective situation. But Cisco's trying to make him feel better, but no, dude, you do what you do, you handle stuff down. And he's just kind of well, to the next time we meet. And the fact is he said it like that, that's why I was kind of thinking the whole blade, that blade from Savitar's armor, I was maybe that was going to be him trying to kill Savitar or something like that. That's what I was kind of thinking, but maybe it'll play a role, like I said, in the next episode. Obviously I'm skipping around here. A big part of this episode, they ended up finding out, hey, there's something that's got enough power to help charge the Speed Force cannon bazooka, sorry. And it's oh, what is it? Oh yeah, it's something that's sealed in Argus. Turns out it's Dominator tech. And they end up telling Lila, and Lila's wait a minute, so why are you spying? Should you really be spying on us, Cisco? And Cisco's come on, is it really spying if we're friends? But Lila in the beginning turns them down, which even I'm wait, what? She's and she kind of explains something that's kind of I see where she's coming from. Obviously, Lila isn't necessarily the same person she used to be, probably back when Barry kind of really knew her. I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, Diggle's kind of learned that the hard way recently, so it's like, Barry's kind of getting like a rude awakening in that too. But like, it's a sense of like, she's like, yeah, like this doesn't necessarily have to deal with the fact is that I have a son now. I mean, yeah, I would love to know what it's like to have a daughter, but it's like more so the fact is it's because you went back and created Flashpoint. It's like because you made a mistake, and it's like, how do I know I can trust you? This is a weapon that if out of it in the wrong hands, it could lead to a lot of people getting hurt. And it's like, I know honestly, she's like, I can't trust you. The fact of the matter is, you went back in time and kind of screwed everything up. Yes, we have a son instead of a daughter, but it's like that's not the point. The point is the fact that you could have screwed things up even worse. Maybe we wouldn't have had a child at all. I mean, even the way Diggle took it, remember, like, technically they had a daughter who no longer exists, so she's kind of wiped from existence. Once again, I still beg the question, like, who's to say that you won't end up having Sarah later? Maybe things kind of flip-flop. Maybe you have John first, but then you end up having Sarah later on, which granted, the whole Legends of Tomorrow, like, what was it, 2047 Star City kind of makes you think maybe that's not necessarily the case, but I don't know, it could still be a possibility. But so they can't really just bust into the place either because, they have all this high-tech security and they've got stuff to basically dampen metahuman ability. So it's like not like Barry and Wally can just bust in there and do their thing. So Barry does the one thing he knows how to. He relies on someone who's like, well, who do I know that's the ultimate thief? Snart, which I was super happy to see him. Sadly, I already got spoiled because of the previews. I already caught that glimpse, so I didn't know at the time what the circumstances would be. But the moment Barry's like, "Oh, we got to break in," I'm like, "That's what you need Snart for." So Snart initially is like, "Why would I do this?" It's like Iris is going to die, which is like, "Oh, you thought that would be enough to convince me?" He's just like, "Yeah." So I mean, this is obviously this. You also got to remember, this is him picking Snart while he's with the Legends. Obviously, he kind of badmouths them a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, I'm already off helping all these do-gooders. Why am I help another hero or whatever? It's like, you can handle this on your own, which is Barry's like, I can't. So him and Snart work together and everything, which is interesting. I love when he walks in, everyone's like, wait, are you serious? Because this also represents something I didn't even think about, where like Joe's like, yeah, like, yo, Barry, didn't you promise you weren't going to go back in time? It's like, this is a necessary evil. It's like, don't worry, when it's all said and done, I'll just put him back in his own time, like there'll be no problem, be like it never happened or anything. It was like, sure thing. Going to be any residual effects from that? Will that kind of, I mean, even the smallest changes have drastic effects, so it's like, who's to say like Snart having that experience with Barry doesn't change things? I mean, who's to also say maybe his experience with Barry, I mean, whether he realized, what he probably doesn't bother telling the team, but maybe in fact that ended up helping Snart make the decision he made in season 1, willing to sacrifice himself. Obviously, it's a combination of working with Barry as well as working with the Legends. Because it kind of balances itself out, because like even Snart kind of brought it up. The fact of the matter is, it's like, it's no wonder him and Barry are kind of the way they are because of their upbringing. What happened to Barry, what happened to Snart? As we learned, like, wasn't that last season we learned about Snart? Or was that season 1? No, that had to be like last season. We learned a lot about Snart's past. Like, he didn't have the like best upbringing. I mean, it's something that kind of came up during season 1 of Legends of Tomorrow too, because like he confronted his dad a little bit at one point. But nevertheless, it's like Barry sees the good in Snart, and Snart kind of sees the darker side of Barry, especially because we saw it this episode. Obviously, using that device that's from HR's world, he was able to disguise himself as Lila, and then like immediately proceeded to disguise as her, beat up the guards and stuff like that. And even Snart's like, wow, look at you being all bad guy and everything. I did like the reveal that, like, I was wondering, I was like, okay, because I was like, oh, what's this whole King Shark thing? I thought that was him trying to steal something. It's like, no, they're using him as a guard dog for the device or whatever, which they're like, have Cisco bringing it up. It's like, oh my god, this device, it's so high tech. Oh man, it costs like $10 million. It can survive an atomic blast. There's no getting through it. Oh, beep, 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 beep. Boom, Snart did it. It's like he's not a master thief for nothing. It's like he got through it pretty quickly. But like I said, King Shark was waiting on the other side. But then you had that moment where Barry's like, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to kill him. And even Snart had to be the one to be like, yo, you're really going to do that? It's like, you're supposed to be the hero here and everything. And so he was like, you know what? Basically, it's like, I watch Shark Week. I need to keep myself busy while we're doing all that time traveling and everything. So luckily, didn't have to kill King Shark, but there was a moment where Barry could have easily left Snart because Snart was stuck behind. It's like, okay, so this is your choice on what to do. Granted, There was a part of me that was actually wondering, would it be like, I figured Barry would help him, but I thought Barry would run away first, but then he'll think about it and then regret it and come back and help Snart. But it's like, no, he didn't run away at all. So I also appreciate the fact is that King Shark got his arm chopped off. I was like, oh man, he's going to walk around with never mind, his arm is growing back. I'm not that familiar with King Shark, so I guess that's just how he operates. That's interesting. But sadly for them, Lila shows up in time and is like, oh, busted. Oh, you're going to steal it anyway. It's like, I'm sorry, but I need us to save Iris. Which, you have Lila being like, yeah, here, take it. He's like, wait, what? It's like, the fact is, she's like, I saw the recording. The fact is, you could have easily left Snart, but you didn't. The fact is, you knew what staying there would mean, that you might get caught and might jeopardize your chances of saving Iris. But you didn't, so... here. Because she's like, I know if the shoe was on the other foot, like if John was in trouble or something, you do whatever you could to help him. So, because that's, at first I was like I said, it's a combination of just her job and everything, because it's like, she can't take risk and stuff like that because it's her job and everything. But also, it's just, I figured, like, I think, it was still struggling in the back of her mind because she knows, like, how important Iris is. Like, to her, it'd be the same thing if Diggle was in trouble. It's like, of course I'd do anything to try and help him. But, so it's like, she understands that. And, but seeing Barry, like, be like, seeing how trustworthy he could be now, like, seeing that, he made that decision, had made her have a change of heart. I'm sure she was already on the fence. Whether she was willing to admit it or not, she was on the fence inside of her heart, but that helped kind of push her over the edge. It's like, I'm not going to judge her for being like, oh, yeah, why should... It's like, no, she brings up some valid points. Like, the fact of the matter is, it's like, you can't necessarily... Like, I mean, after what Barry's done, it's like, his track record hasn't proven him to be the most trustworthy in these type of situations, so it's, like, understandable. Plus, it's like, this is your job and everything. It's like, you've been... tasked with taking care of this thing, so make sure it doesn't slip into anyone else's hands. So it's understandable. Kind of flipping over to a different side of the episode. Some very interesting conversations. I think I was kind of getting to it earlier. Was Caitlin and Savitar talking? She's like, the fact of the matter is, you have all of Barry's memories, but yet, are you going to really be okay with going through with killing Iris? And he's like, why wouldn't I? Because the fact of the matter is, and I never thought about that. It's like, yeah, the reason why because he needs to complete the cycle. If he doesn't kill Iris, he's never born and he never becomes the god of speed like he is now. So he needs to do this. So it's a combination of want and need. Want because it will get revenge on not just Iris, but everyone that's a part of Team Flash for abandoning him. Like, oh, I wasn't the real Barry Allen, so you left me and abandoned me. Even to the point when later on when Joe's talking to him, it's like, Barry, he's like, that's not my name, so kind of like being like, it's like, I'm no longer Barry, it probably makes him even more spiteful because it's like, oh, you want to call me Barry now that your daughter's life is in danger, you want to call me Barry like I'm your quote unquote real son. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not the real Barry. So it's probably just, psychologically he's just broken, and so it's just like he's just filled with so much hate is why he's doing all of this. So, but that was the point I was trying to make. Like, the fact is that Killer Frost was bringing up that conversation. He's like, well, you're not having second guesses, are you? She's like, no. I'm like, that was bits of Caitlin. As we saw last episode, wasn't that last episode, or was that? Yeah, that was last episode. We did see remnants of Caitlin kind of pop up. So she's still there, but she's probably just not quite at the surface. We do see that later on, because I was like wondering where she would play a part in all of this, and it seems like her part to play is her fighting Cisco to keep him distracted so that he's not there to help Barry and everything. Because Barry tells him not to come because he's like, this might be our one last chance to save Caitlin because Savitar's not there to get in the way. So they start their battle and everything, which for Cisco, he's like, this is the future I've been avoiding for so long. I've saw it before, and it's just I didn't want to admit it. Plus, I'm sure Barry told him about future him with the whole mechanical arms. I don't know if that actually came up or not. So Wally's kind of knocked out of commission because going up against Savitar broke his leg. And as we know, ultimately at the end of the episode, Savitar possibly kills Iris. She did record a message to Barry. She's like, basically saying what she would have said at the wedding is like, basically almost like officializing the wedding, over the phone. Just like, I need you to know this. Like, I will, no matter what happens, just kind of making it like, I will be your wife and you will be my husband, and that, she loves him, just needs him to know that. And so Barry made sure to tell everyone, it's like, no, no, don't worry about it. He ended up telling Wally, because Wally's like, I'm sorry, Barry, you gave me this responsibility. I was supposed to do this, but I failed. He's like, no, Wally, you become the hero I always knew you had the potential to be. Because I think what Barry is, because he's not trying to let that future happen, but now, like what happens with Team Flash. So the question is, what will Barry do? Will he undoubtedly go down that path? Like I said, I still think that HR thing is going to play a role. Like, I think HR is going to sacrifice himself to make sure to take down Savitar. Because once Savitar's armor is removed, like, he may be fast, but even, like I said, like, we know what his speed will do to his body, so it's not like he continuously fights. So if Barry can get him, if they can destroy his armor, make his armor useless to him, Barry can like fight him like straight up, and he'll kind of outmatch Savitar in that sense. It's kind of something interesting. I'd never really thought about it, and now that he brought up the whole example of season 2's finale, where Barry kind of created a remnant to fight against Zoom. Basically, he's like, the fact of the matter is, I was created for the sole purpose of dying. I was supposed to be like a means of fighting, a weapon to use. And then, like, I was supposed to die, but I didn't. And then afterwards, I was abandoned like I was nothing. It's like, now that you put it in retrospect, it's like, man, it puts that whole time remnant. I mean, obviously, like, Zoom killed all his time remnant. Well, he killed time remnants like they were nothing. But now it's like, now it makes you actually a little sad about the whole. I mean, granted, I was a little sad then anyway, but still, like, the fact of the matter is, like, in retrospect, now you feel even worse about the whole time remnant dying for that particular circumstance. And when you actually think about all the time remnants that possibly died fighting against Savitar. So, like I said, my thought, like, if you hadn't heard the other episodes, I brought up that I thought what was going to happen is Tracy was going to die, and I thought that's what's going to put HR on the roof and everything like that. But it's like, obviously we can see that, time is changing, especially because the message was like, oh yeah, Plunder, he's being, after he was caught by Kid Flash. So obviously those future changes have set in and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is, they were only able to get minor steps. So crazy episode. Next week is in fact the season finale, and there's no telling how this is all going to end. I mean, there's one possibility. He said he wasn't going to do it, especially after everything gets caused this episode. I mean, caused this entire season, him creating Flashpoint and everything. But being so distraught, will Barry try to go back in time and fix this? Whether, because there's also the whole situation of got to get Jay out of Speed Force, too, on top of that. And you also got the whole Caitlyn versus Cisco situation, which is like, that could end very badly because Cisco has to fight her, because it's like, if he doesn't, he may not die, but he'll get his arms frozen. Because the thing is, we still don't know, because in the future, Barry hates, like, Caitlyn, keeping her locked up. It's like, oh yeah, you never like, she was basically alluding to, like, oh, he never forgave her. It's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, I know you're not the real Barry, because, like, the Barry from this time, you're a younger him, because it's like, you don't have that hate in your eyes. Which is like, I guess it's because she was all fighting Cisco, keeping him busy, so he couldn't be there to help. So I guess that's what she does. But I feel like the fact of the matter is, she might do a lot more than just take Cisco's arms and make it impossible for him to use his powers and stuff like that. I'm surprised, like, Cisco's powers doesn't. I guess, he needs his arms to vibe and everything, but I feel like there could be a lot more to that. I mean, like I said, this next episode, this would be the perfect opportunity to start bringing in some heavy hitters, maybe even get Gypsy to help. I don't know if that's going to be a possibility or not, but like I said, I hope on everything Iris isn't gone, but maybe I don't know. They're kind of alluding to it like, oh, this is the end, but we would just have to wait till the next episode to decide. Like, this will determine everything. Like I said, the whole conversation of, like, even like Snart said it himself, it's like, don't fight Savitar on his level of just trying to do whatever it takes. Fight him with the good. Like, that good isn't a weakness, it's just your strength. So it's like, will Barry let that goodness outweigh the darkness? Because this will cast a darkness on him like nothing else. That's why everyone says, like, this is such a crucial point. It's because this is what broke Barry. But then again, like, there's also the Barry from 2056 or 2057, whatever the case may be. It's like, granted, there was a whole don't trust Barry, and it's like, oh yeah, maybe now I'm thinking about it in retrospect, it's like, maybe that was actually kind of warning about the whole, like, HR situation, because obviously Barry was turned around. He even wore the suit and everything. It's like, it was an honest mistake. I wasn't expecting that either. I was like, oh yeah, there's Barry, and it's like, oh, that's Savitar. Wow, wasn't expecting that. So maybe that was kind of a slight notice against that or something. I don't know, like I said, we will just have to wait and see. I'm very excited to see what goes on in the season finale. And now moving on to this week's episode of iZombie, a very good episode where obviously we pick it all right where last week's episode left off. It's like, yep, Natalie has the cure. I didn't know their other cures were going to get taken. And now everyone's like, okay, so who took it? Was it Blaine? Was it Donnie? Turns out I was right on both fronts. I figured I would be. Blaine, obviously, like, I know Blaine wouldn't need it because obviously he's got the recipe for the cure and everything, which doesn't, I mean, granted, they don't know about that, but didn't stop Liv from going zombie mode and punching him in the face and starting to strangle him a little bit one-handed. And I do appreciate it in the background. You can hear someone go, whoa, did she take your lunch money too? And these guys are laughing about it. It's like, that's no laughing matter. I mean, if Liv wanted to, she can beat the crap out of all you and steal your lunch money as well. So, but Blaine is kind of just, because Liv is like, oh yeah, you're such a liar, a manipulator, and a killer, and he's like, yeah, on top of that, I don't know whether he was alluding to the fact is that he was drunk or kind of getting high or whatever the case may be, but it's like, man, you look at him, Blaine is miserable, because for him, everything fell apart, because no matter what, the fact is he was happy. He thought, like, oh, I can get a fresh new start. That's over with. Now that Peyton knows the truth about him, Peyton's kind of cut him off, and it's like, I think legitimately he had fallen for Peyton, and now he's heartbroken and everything. And he just kind of gave up. He's just like, day-to-day business. Oh, whatever. Who cares? I mean, granted, that doesn't stop Donnie from showing up later on and trying to steal his operation for him. Now, at that moment, bam, Blaine has hit rock bottom. Blaine has hit rock bottom before in the past, but never to this extent. So sucky for him. It's like, man, you literally have nothing. You don't have Peyton. You don't have your business partners anymore. You're on your own. Even Candy, that was there by your side, has now left you to probably start working for Donnie. It's like, oh, and your dad wants you dead because he sends one of the dudes to shoot Blaine. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry about this, but your dad wanted to make you suffer. Which Blaine stops and is like, I got money, which... The one thing you should know about Blaine is he is a bit of a cockroach. And if you don't stomp him out, he will come back. Ask Mr. Boss. Him and his goons literally slit Blaine's throat. But that didn't stop him. Granted, those were different circumstances. But still, Blaine does not stay down. It's been up and down roller coaster, but he still always finds a way to come back. I am wondering, will this be like a legitimate change of heart for Blaine? Because obviously he is working on a cure. Granted, he doesn't have access to all the ingredients needed for it, but maybe he'll be able to track them down or something. Obviously, he's going to go head to head between him and his dad. It's like, oh, dad wants to kill me? Like, in some shape or form, he's most likely going to kill this guy. Like, we didn't get to see it for the rest of the episode, but I'm sure he's going to kill that guy. And then obviously he's going to go after his dad, so... I'm very interested to see where that goes, because it's like Donnie easily switches loyalties when need be, and it's like, oh, finds out, oh, you killed your dad. Oh, I guess your boss again. And it's like, maybe that'd be the case. I don't know. That really depends on Blaine. Like I said, Blaine's just kind of defeated and miserable and just kind of giving up. I mean, it's like, to be fair, it's your own fault for lying. You didn't have to lie. I mean, granted, you could, I mean, technically he did have to lie because Peyton never would have been with him. And, obviously he wanted another chance. He wanted to be a better person, which he was. I mean, granted, as we see, he was lying and manipulating and still doing his whole business run, even when he had his memory lost, because, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, he's probably, like, behind the scenes with this whole memory loss thing, he probably has kept up operations, because the fact is, Candy is like, oh yeah, you ready to get to work and everything? We got all these brains we got to ship off. So yeah, there's still that. So, but obviously the main part of this episode dealt with a kindergarten, or is it preschool, whatever the case may be. He's a teacher named Jamie, and Liv has to eat his brains. I love that moment at the beginning. It's just like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, this is so amazing. It's like, and like his girlfriend Piper shows up. It's like, oh, is she the woman you were sleeping with? Just getting all your boobs out in front of my man and everything. This is my boyfriend. And then like, it's like, I found your underwear underneath his bed or something like that. And one of the little girls was like, mommy, those are the same underwear that you have. And it's like, ooh, complicated. The prince, I guess she's the principal, whatever, she kind of brings it up later on. It's like, yeah, Jamie's a womanizer. This isn't like a new thing. Apparently, he's been sleeping with teachers like every year. This is the year he apparently has kind of stepped it up to a new level, because he's sleeping with 3 teachers at the same time. Not 3 teachers, I'm sorry, 3 parents of the children he's teaching. It's like, wow, you are just, wow. Wow. So all of it's about trying to figure out, obviously, who killed him. All while Liv is on his brain, and I just love her on his brain, just being like, there was a conversation she was having later on with one of the ladies, I think her name was Eleanor, was basically like, oh, she's like, yeah, my husband, he works on a boat with, a job with fishes. And she's like, oh, what's some other jobs that involve fishing? And then you have Clive being like, stop. And there was one point later on where even talking to Eleanor with a sock puppet, being like, oh, don't worry about it. Your husband's going to be okay. Like, because obviously it's like, he's going to have to find out about the fair, which they tell Eleanor's husband later on. And it's like, he looks like it's like you expect like a huge reaction to just being mad or just furious, but it's like he breaks down crying and just Clive and Liv are just looking at you like, okay, and she's about to bring out the puppet and just Clive grabs her hand and just pushes it down. It's like, no, and he does even a system later on she creates for Clive, like, look, here's a star system just to show how awesome you are. It's like, you need to be rewarded for all the good jobs you do. At one point she's like, who's a superstar? And then Clive is like, you damn right I am, and kind of takes us. It's so good. Just one of those brains you just can't help but love. Even there's a conversation between Major and Robbie later on. It's like, oh yeah, you told me this brain of yours is super positive and everything. I mean, you told me that I could be an astronaut. It's like, she told me I could be an astronaut too. Not everyone wants to be an astronaut, but you could if you wanted to, or a firefighter, or even president. It's just like, I love you being so positive and everything. I mean, sadly, we ended up finding out later on the person who did it was one of the ladies he was sleeping with. Her husband had hired a private investigator. I can't remember his name. I think his name's Roger. I want to say Cross, but I don't think that's right. It's, I don't remember his name, but like, when it comes to dark matter, interestingly enough, kind of another not too comic book thing, even though, nevertheless, on the show Dark Matter, he plays Six. Obviously, he's popped up in other stuff too, but he's also one of the main characters, main antagonist in Continuum, but like the most recent thing obviously being Six from Dark Matter. If you don't know, like initially they were named by numbers. They have legitimate names, but I always refer to them most of the time by their numbers. So nevertheless, he was the PI that was hired. Basically, one of the ladies' husbands, they have an open relationship, but it doesn't change the fact that he got super pissed. Another interesting development in this episode, on the Major front, we ended up finding out, like, Major's friend Justin ended up figuring out, he's like, yo, so you're human now, aren't you? But he wasn't mad or anything. He's like, dude, that's so cool. I think he was excited about the thought of there being a, cure, because for him it's like, yeah, if I'm no longer a zombie, I don't have to do such dangerous jobs, which that kind of brought up something, like Major kind of brought it up. It's like if they found out he was human, they'd kick him out. I was like, I guess because for him, I'm about to say Kilmore Graves, like that was a combination of Fillmore Graves plus Kilgrave from Jessica Jones. I kind of messed with. Sorry, Fillmore Graves is kind of his only purpose, because like there's nothing else for him outside of that, because it's like, oh yeah, let's not forget everyone looks at him as like the chaos killer, doesn't matter what the situation is. It's like, oh, you'll be the chaos killer in everyone's eyes. Nevertheless, so it's the one place he can be okay and be himself and everything. But now that he's human, they'll kick him out. Like, I guess, I don't know whether that means Fillmore Graves in general or specifically the unit he's a part of, because that unit needs to be zombies to go out and carry out missions, because it's like, oh, you won't be as easily defeated. I mean, unless you take a headshot, but bullets won't slow you down and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, I don't know. It might just be Fillmore Graves in general, but they went out of their way to bring it up to Clive at the beginning of the season, be like, oh yeah, there's humans who work here too that know the whole truth. So, but then again, it's like, who's to say Major will be all okay with having like a desk job or something like that? So, obviously, he's trusting Justin to keep his secret, which Justin's like, yo, I'll do it. Which now makes me go, so maybe it wasn't Justin who took it. Because obviously, like, Donnie ends up bringing up later on when Liv confronts him. It's like, dude, if I had all those cures, I'd be super rich right now, because I'd be selling it to anyone that doesn't want to have a cure. Side note, the dude that wanted to cure last episode, not the same dude I was thinking about. He popped up. He was the bartender in this episode. Apparently, I didn't even realize it. Maybe, when did that pop up? But Liv is like, oh yeah, you're one of Clive's CIs. So he's like, shh. Because he even recognized her as a police officer. It's like, how do you know that? It's like, oh, he's one. It's like, has he popped up before? Maybe he has. I didn't remember that when I saw him, but but nevertheless, so that's kind of interesting. It's like, do you think he's doing that on purpose, working there? Is that kind of supposed to be, maybe that's him being a CI for someone else? I mean, to be fair, like, I think I brought it up last episode. I could be wrong, but I was like, I think I threw Caddy's name out there, Christina Cox's character, as a possibility. Like, maybe she got the feeling like Robbie was hiding stuff from her, so she started investigating a little bit. There's always the possibility of Kavanaugh, because he's got little suspicious of them. I don't think they warranted enough for him to be that suspicious. I mean, granted, we don't know. Fillmore Graves isn't 100% off the hook yet, but like I get the feeling like Justin, I hope he doesn't betray me because like I'm putting my trust in you like Major did. I was like, you're kind of off the suspect board at this point in time, but it's like who else would have access to it? Like I said, it's looking more and more likely like it might be Caddy because she's the only other person that's been down there. And side note, we have not seen her for a while. She didn't pop up the last time we saw her is when her and Robbie were sleeping together. So who's to say when she was at Robbie's house, she didn't read some of his notes or anything? Maybe she found out about zombieism or whatever it is that he's concocting, or maybe she was spying on him or whatever. I mean, who's to say maybe she's not even there of her own will? Maybe the twist is we'll find out, hey, maybe she's actually a zombie and she's actually covering things up. Or maybe the fact of the matter is she was hired by Fillmore Graves to kind of fill stuff out. Maybe she actually isn't a zombie. Maybe she's one of the human people that works for him. I don't know. Fillmore Graves is a large company. Who's to say that they don't have access, would be, that's not too far out of their wheelhouse or something. I don't know, throwing out these crazy theories and stuff like that. But still, it'd be kind of interesting to see where that, like, who would take that? Like, that's the only people I feel like would really have it. Like I said, Kavanaugh doesn't seem like he has enough reason to doubt, to even jump to, like, stealing from him. So she's kind of my number one suspect for right now. But another thing that kind of popped up in this episode is Justin kind of made it apparent. He's like, so, okay, I know this ain't, there's really no time to really bring this up, but, what about Liv? And he's like, and then Major ends up bringing that to it. It's like, yeah, Justin kind of wanted to get my permission if he could court you, which is like, she's like, oh, he must not know about all my my love life experience. And Ravi kind of made a joke, and she looked at him. He's like, I'm sorry, but we were all thinking it. Which is like, yeah, Liv doesn't have the best record when it comes. I mean, to be fair, Major's still alive. 1 out of 3 is not bad, low. Drake. Truth be told, is now that's kind of, what does that say a lot for Major? It puts Major probably in a safe zone because it's like, well, the fact of the matter is, like, he was, obviously they dated, and obviously that was her fiance, so he came first. But the moment, like, sometime after dating Lowell, he died. Sometime after dating Drake, he died. So I don't know. Plus, both of them were zombies, and Major's not a zombie anymore, so maybe that kind of removes him from the running. But now this does put Justin in a very interesting position where it's like, oh yeah, like, if anything does develop, it's like, now there might be the 3-strike curse. This might be strike number 3. Hell, for all we know, Major might be strike number 3. I hope it's neither, but that's definitely going to complicate things, especially because Major and Liv kind of hit it back off. Granted, she's still a zombie, so there's no more like, But they had that moment and everything, but now her and Justin, so it's like your new friend and your ex-fiance who you were just kind of rekindling things with to a certain extent, or possibly like each other now. The whole little card that she sent him later on, and Major's like, okay, dude, this is the last card I'm like exchanging between you and her. Like, that's super awkward and weird for him, I'm sure. But that's also the thing too, is like Major having to deal with the fact is, well, he's not a zombie anymore. Also, like, obviously to get inside of the club, you had to eat ghost peppers. Lucky for him, Donnie showed up when he did. It's like, it's good to have connections like you do, right? But there was a twist at the end of the episode where, like, you have Major and Justin. They end up attacking that dude. I forgot his name. What is his name? Harley? The dude who knows about zombies because, like, his brother was there at the Max Rager building, whatever the case may be. And they ended up tracking him down, and obviously he's with his friend. They attack him. Justin kind of goes and, gets run over. He was trying to sneak up, but gets run over, and he kind of reveals himself as a zombie, piecing himself back together, goes into zombie mode, goes after the car. They get away, but they also have recordings of Justin too. So not only do they have proof of zombies existing, they also have Justin's face out there, which is not good. At least Major had the sense of covering up his face. I thought the whole point was the Major be like, okay, oh, are you guys out here hunting zombies? Yeah, he takes it off. I'm hunting zombies too. That might, now that I think about it, that might actually play a role in this episode, because then you have Major be like, not the episode, but the season be like, oh yeah, I'm the chaos killer. It's like, yeah, all my victims, they were zombies. Like, that might be his way in. That might be where it's going. At least so, at least for Major, it's like some good will come about him being a chaos killer. And like, because everyone knows his face and everything. So, obviously he hid his face in this episode. Granted, Justin, I don't know why Justin didn't do the same, but nevertheless. So I'm sure that won't be good for Fillmore Graves, but I mean, we'll kind of see whether there's ramifications for that or not, which there most likely will be. Now they have proof, and they're going to get a lot of people locked and loaded to take down zombies, so we'll see. But obviously, another big part of this episode is the whole situation with the dominatrix case. There was a guy, Weckler. Basically, his attorney is like, yeah, something's kind of not right. Because affecting, like, you know, basically him and Peyton had to sit down with the dude. And it was like, yo, you need to talk. You know, maybe hand over that memory card. Maybe we can take, you know, the blackmail parts off of it. But he's like, yeah, but that's the only thing keeping me alive. The moment he says that, a new lawyer walks in. Weckler fires his old lawyer, and then like the lawyer's talking to Peyton. It's like, oh, so what kind of deals you put on him? It's like, well, he does this, this, and that. We'll give the memory card. I'll slap off 10 years. If not, like he'll have the full 30 years for like Man 2 and blackmail and extortion and blackmail and stuff like that. He's like, okay, so you keep all that on board. He'll just have to go with it because the memory card doesn't exist. Later on, find out Weckler hung himself in his prison, in his cell, which is like, nope. So it is like the hugest cover up. I don't remember if I brought this up last episode. I'm thinking so, but I'm like, I might have, I might not have. If I didn't, I'll bring it up this episode because I mean, it's still there in forefront of my head. It's like, Mr. Balls. He's the only person I feel like that's big time enough. Like that dominatrix, either he went to her, like I said, either that or one of his men went to her, and that particular man blabbed too much. Whatever the case may be, she was recording something, and maybe Mr. Boss was there hatching out his plans or something, and he found out about it, and that's why he killed the dominatrix. And now it's like, whoa, this guy has to take the fall immediately, because I was suspicious of that too. I was like, why did he just immediately, like, there was no evidence and stuff like that, but he broke easily, and it's like, now we got, especially because last episode Peyton was looking to it a lot more. I'm like, so what else is more to this case? So I mean, that's all there is for now, because you know Peyton's asking Ravi to look into the body. I mean, there's no way to really tell if there's been a murder or not, but it's like, hey, Liv can eat his brain. It's like, to make things a little easier, it's like, we're going to supercharge the brain in the liquid that Ravi used before that basically made wasn't it the dominatrix brain that lasted longer? It's basically doing the same thing. Which you also see this look on Ravi's eyes, because originally when Peyton came down, she's like, yeah, I'm looking for you. He's like, oh. Yeah, did you examine the body yet? Oh. But then when he's with the brain and everything, and you see her kind of looking down at it and everything, you see him kind of look over to her and kind of smile. It's like, so, obviously it's not going to be the easiest thing to kind of forgive, but I'm sure like Blaine's screw-ups kind of helped lessen the blows against Ravi. I mean, he's still got a long way to go. I'm sure he's not out of the doghouse yet, but slowly but surely, hopefully, him and Peyton can kind of find a way back to each other. I mean, it won't be that easy. So, I mean, obviously, Ravi's not going to jump at it. I mean, he's waiting for an opportunity, but it's like he's not going to jump or try to push for it, because it's like not in a position to do that after sleeping with his former boss and everything, even though he confessed his feelings and love for Peyton and didn't have sex with someone behind her back and everything. So, like I said, a very, very good episode. I'm very interested to see what goes on in the next episode. And now moving on to the season finale of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So freaking good. Oh my god. Yes, we have Ghost Rider back and just being sick as ever. I did not bring it up at the end of the episode. I wish I had last week's episode. Him having the chain now too. It's like it's complete. Love him showing up, taking on Ada and her robots and everything. He ended up saying something interesting, because it's like, you're not a robot like the other. So it's like, Ada wasn't around when no, because all that stuff with Ada happened after he left, wasn't like her being, no. She got revealed beforehand, didn't she? Right, because the Darkhold and everything. I forgot, like, never mind. Because the entire time I'm like, was he able to see from the other side or something like that? It's like, no, I forgot. Like, when Ada was revealed, it's like, yeah, he was still around and everything. I forgot. Nevertheless, proceeded to kick those robots' asses. Man, oh man, is it sick, him using that chain and just slicing through them. And there's like one moment he's going up against Ada, she's blasting him in the chest, and the rider comes out. He jumps, kind of twists in the air, and is bringing the chain to kind of whip her, and then she like teleports away because he actually hurts her. Because a very interesting thing we ended up finding out this episode is the same darkness, like the Darkhold is like, the essence that the Darkhold brings up is actually what makes up Ada's human body, and that's actually the same darkness that the Rider comes from, and like it's all connected. The reason why Ravi was able to come back now is because of Ada opening a hole into darkness by making her own body. So that's how the writer was able to come through. This episode, he ended up kind of establishing like other dimensions and stuff like that, other worlds, that basically this fight is bigger than what they think, which I'm kind of thinking this is kind of pushing, at least to my mind, it's like we're kind of pushing that Doctor Strange level of like, he's like basically talking about the war on multiple fronts, so universes and stuff like that. So I will admit, I love that combo between him and Daisy later on in the episode. It's like they're working together and everything, and it's against Robot Anton, which granted, we don't see them the rest of the episode, so I don't know if that's the real Anton. I'm sure there were more of them, because I'm sure there's still going to be a threat going forward, but for now, it's like they've kind of been dealt with. But it's like Robbie grabs him, wraps a chain around him, twirls him into the air, and you have Daisy like blasting like his body into bits, like she did the before her and Gemma went into the framework, when she did that to like the other LMDs that had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. And then I love when Coulson showed, he's like, "Wait, I missed it, didn't I? You two working together, I just missed it, didn't I? Damn it!" I was just like, I know how you feel, Coulson, because it was awesome. It was sick. I was waiting for that combo. I was like, yeah. Oh, got me too hyped, dude. It's like, I freaking love you, Ghost Rider. That's so good. It's sad that, actually, like, when you think about it in retrospect, it's like, Robbie never actually was able to take time to get, to actually visit his brother Gabe. Like, didn't even get to see him at all. So I know, now that I'm thinking about it, I could be completely wrong. I need to check that, look into it. I thought about it last week when he popped up, but I was like, is the actor who plays Gabe in this show the same actor who plays MK on Into the Badlands? I don't think it is. I think I'm just kind of, I think my brain, it's been a while since I've seen his face, like not since like the first half of the season, so I'm thinking that's kind of messing with me, like thinking like, oh, it's like, no, it can't be. It's probably like me just, well, whatever the case may be. But nevertheless, there's so much story to talk about in this episode. But I'm guessing, like, the fact is that they're setting that up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like there being other universes, which granted, like, there's a whole Doctor Strange thing. But to be fair, I don't know how many people in the MCU actually know about Doctor Strange. Like, Doctor Strange isn't probably going to be a thing. Like, granted, at the end of the movie, you see him talking to Thor and everything, so it's like, Thor's aware of him. They're kind of on the more mystical, magical side of things, so obviously they would talk. But I guess that's also alluding to the fact is that that's obviously leading up to probably Thor Ragnarok in some way, shape, or form. MCU and everything. But, I doubt anyone really knows about Doctor Strange because, it's probably like he's kind of in his own little corner doing his own thing. So maybe, this is their way of kind of elaborating it a little bit more, letting everyone else know about it for now. Because it probably won't be until like Infinity Wars when it comes out. Yeah, there's like multiple worlds and everything. So, at least that's how I'm kind of alluding to it. So basically, because we already know about I don't think that was another dimension. Obviously, it was another planet. Back in season 3, the planet Hive was sealed on. That was a planet. So, obviously, we have Fitz still dealing with the whole situation of like blaming himself after everything that went down. It's like the fact of the matter is, even if they were programs, he still tortured a lot of people. That like basically he ended up downloading people's DNA like before they entered Terra Genesis, or I forgot how you phrase it. Either it was during them going through Terra Genesis, or before they did, kind of tapped into their latent inhuman abilities, like Lincoln and Gordon, example being two prime examples we saw, and inputted those abilities inside of Ada. And it's like, even if they were fakes, he still did that, especially considering who Lincoln was to them too. Like, he makes it sound like it was Lincoln. Well, he kind of, more specifically, he said it was like a database he was pulling from, is what I'm thinking of. Is how I don't, whether he actually did that to Lincoln, kind of tortured him to get the DNA, stuff like that, or whether it was just specifically, it might have gone hand in hand, but nevertheless. He couldn't forgive himself because of everything that he did. And, Jim was like, oh, the fact of the matter is you don't have to be like that. The fact of the matter is, let's work together and kill her. Is there a way to kill her? And he's like, I don't know. And then she started asking the other question. Do you even want to kill her? Which I mean, like, obviously, like, Fitz and Simmons have a long way to go before they get back to where they were. It's super awkward between them and everything. There was a moment, obviously, later on in the episode that they set up a trap for Ada. And it was kind of interesting, like, at first, she pops up and everything, and she's stabbing Simmons. I'm like, oh, crap. And, like, you have Fitz trying to talk to her and everything. And then basically, Simmons said something that made me think it was a trap. It's like, the fact is, I was like, we're going to find out this isn't really Simmons. The moment she said, this is all because of you, Fitz, kind of blaming him, I was like, that doesn't sound like Gemma. I don't think Gemma would blame him in this moment in time and stuff like that. It's like, I was like, at that moment, I was like, you're not really Gemma, are you? Especially when she electrocutes. I was like, you're a LMD, aren't you? And it's like, yep, she is. So that was kind of interesting to me. It's like, because to me, I don't know whether it's Gemma herself who was controlling the LMD and kind of saying that, or whether it was programmed. Like, I think Fitz programmed it to say that because he wanted, obviously the fit the situation, but also I think he needed that negative. He wanted negative reinforcement against himself. He needed something to look like Gemma to blame him, because Gemma hasn't outright blamed him. It's like, it's not all your fault. She's like defending him and everything. And I don't know. It's never discussed, but I get the feeling that had to be something that he had to have programmed in her. So, and speaking of programs, I love the fact is that the conversation comes up between May and Coulson. It's like, yeah, that Haig, got drunk and everything. It's like, yeah, Robot May was so supportive, and it's just like, is that who you share? Did you share the bottle with Robot May? He's like, do we really want to have this conversation now? He's like, well, the fact of the matter is, like, maybe we need to get a new bottle so we can talk about what happened with the old bottle and everything. It's like, basically going forward, like, he's like, basically some things kind of came up between Robot May. I wasn't really sure, whether how much of it was the robot, just programming, and how much of it was you. And she's like, some of it was me. And basically saying, like, when it's all said and done, we're going to take a step back, and then we're going to, come back and see, like, where we want to fit in the situation. Like, obviously, basically saying, let's take a step back, talk a little bit, and then we'll decide, hey, maybe we can make this something more. So, but obviously the trap worked, and we end up seeing that. I was at first like, Coulson's like, yeah, the fact of the matter is, I can't stop you, but he can't. And he turns into the writer. I was like, wait a minute, was that Robbie disguised as Coulson the entire time? Or I was like, at first I was like, no, what it most likely is, it's like some programmed illusion. They want to make her afraid so she'll back away. But it's like, no, Coulson holds on to her. She's teleporting all over the place. And then he like burns her to a crisp until there's nothing but ashes. And I'm like, oh, never mind. That's the real writer. It's because he made a deal with it, which we don't know what the price is. But him and Robbie have a conversation later on. It's like, yeah, I don't know how you do that. But Robbie's like, you know why it did that? He's like, yeah, I know. Basically saying there will be a price to pay, which Coulson's like, yeah, don't tell the others about it. That's something I'm going to keep to myself. Which is like, before Robbie ends up leaving, he's like, you don't have it easy. And Coulson's like, he's like, I don't envy you. And Coulson's like, I don't envy you either. And he's like, oh, you need us to open the portal? He's like, no, I learned a trick or two since the last time we've seen each other. Wraps the chain and kind of swirls it and makes a portal. I was like, dude, that's so sick. Takes the dark hole and steps through. Now, this right here in itself, obviously, because we combine this with what else happened in the episode, I guess I'll kind of put a pin in that for now. But, obviously, there's the whole Mac and Yo-Yo situation. Yo-Yo's in there. Radcliffe gets to her because, Daisy was able to get to him, basically get enough message to him. Basically, because Ada was going to bring the framework to the real world, she didn't need the framework anymore. So everyone started disappearing. The world started disappearing. And so Yo-Yo's trying to get to Mac, but it's like Mac doesn't recognize her. Which Radcliffe is like, for her, it's like, for him, it's like the only thing that matters is his daughter, because he knows that he doesn't have his daughter on the other side of the world. It's in that other world. It's not even about like who might be there. Like for him, he has his little girl right here in front of him. He doesn't have his memories of the other world. He doesn't really understand who's waiting for him. And obviously, accidentally, Yo-Yo kind of lets it slip that, hope isn't real. And it kind of pisses Mac off. And like Radcliffe's like, okay, here's your last chance, Yo-Yo. You gotta go. And she's like, no. Because the fact is, Mac wants to stay because the one person he cares about is here. And Yo-Yo's like, the one person I care about is here. And so she stays by his side. And sadly, sadly, Hope disappears. I was hoping on everything that he'd be able to grab her, like, bring her over to the real world or something. Like when they pull her through, like she's no longer Data, she becomes a human. Even if she just becomes an LMD that in some shape or form she lived on, but sadly that wasn't the case. But luckily, Yo-Yo and Mac were able to get out. It does, because Radcliffe had pointed out something that I thought was very interesting. He pointed out something that would have been very true. If Yo-Yo had forced Mac to leave, even when he gets his memory back and everything, on some level, he would have hated Yo-Yo possibly for, it's like, you took me out of there. The only thing I had was my daughter, and she's not even here in this world. But then again, once again, that's Mac without all the memories of this world, too, and all the people that will miss him and care about him and love him. But, he would also hate himself for not staying with her to the very end. But at least in that world, he did. She disappeared, but at the very least, he held on to her. So it was sad hearing her be like, I don't want to go. It's like, freak, man. What the real sad part about that is when you actually think about it, and That means everyone else disappeared too. That means there's no more war. That means there's no more trip. Like the framework is completely shut down. I'm like obviously it was being deleted and everything, but it makes you wonder how much if there is anything left of it that can be rebooted or restarted. Could all those programs be brought back? Even like Radcliffe himself, because he's the last one to disappear. Which to him is like, well, who cares? Agnes was the main reason why I wanted immortality, was to be together with her forever. And like, who cares about that? Life. This is how the world ends. Not with a bang, but before you can finish, it disappears. So which is sad. It's like Radcliffe, like, with all his faults and everything, he had the best of intentions with everything. So it's sad to see his story play out that way. Basically, Ada getting back at Daisy more so than anyone. She had a robot disguised as her come and shoot Talbot. Luckily, we found out later on that Talbot's not dead. But basically, this puts a target on not just Daisy's back, but S.H.I.E.L.D's back, as well as Inhumans in general. Because an autopsy was done on Mace's body, and it's like, oh, he's not an Inhuman. What's this lie about an Inhuman running S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything? It's like, so S.H.I.E.L.D. has been lying to us, and that's what Talbot wanted, like, Coulson and them there. But it's like, we got to do with this Ada situation. Basically, like, and that's why I'm like, I definitely don't think the Watchdogs are necessarily done with, because we never really got to see the end of Anton and his people. So it begs the question, like, what else could they be planning? There's that other dude too. I forgot the other robot that has like, that was kind of welcome into the meetings and stuff like that. It's like the other robots that Ada built. I was like, I feel like I recognize the actor. I just can't quite place him. I feel like, but nevertheless. So now it puts S.H.I.E.L.D. in a very interesting predicament where it's like, yeah, they're going to be wanted by the government, and, I mean, it's not like they can try and explain the whole LMD situation, but even then, that's just going to be like, everyone's got their mindset of being like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is guilty. So, which we see at the end of the episode, everyone's gotten together, they're eating food and everything. And, which also like them kind of alluding to the fact is Mac and Yo-Yo. It's like, hey, basically, like he ended up bringing up like really quickly, because I didn't finish my thought up earlier about it. Was the fact is that Mac is like, yeah, the fact of the matter is he got time with Hope, like he never got to in this world, because like she was really, really young when she died. Like but even though it was only in that short amount of time he's been inside the framework, for him it felt like years. All those time and memories he's had with her, those will always be a part of him, and it's also inspires him to like, hey, start a family with Yo-Yo. But nevertheless, at the end, they're eating food and everything. Some government agents show up. They activate some device and they all freeze. And it's like, let's take them away. And then at the very end, we see Coulson looking. And it's like he opens up some shutters and it's like space out there. He's like, oh, nice. Okay, Coulson, nice time enjoying the view. Now it's time to get to work. What does that mean? Because obviously this episode like is setting up like, oh, there's multiple worlds. There's a war going on. That's what Robbie was kind of talking about, which kind of makes me wonder, will we be seeing more of Ghost Rider in the future too? Whatever, because they are setting up some very interesting things. Like, what does this all mean? Like, obviously, these weren't some normal government agents who took them. It's like, because it's like, oh, the window is only open for 2 more minutes. So it's like, are we dealing with some intergalactic people? Could this like be like, not necessarily 100% Guardians of the Galaxy level stuff, but could it be connected to that, like the Nova Corps or something like that, make an appearance in this? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I say, it looked like they were in space, so are they going to travel to different planets dealing with stuff? Like, other dimensions. Like I said, they went to the like whole thing of setting them up. What does this mean for them as S.H.I.E.L.D? What does this mean for Inhumans? Because what we saw at the end of this episode was a thing, like when it was all said and done, it's like, oh, Inhumans. I think the movie is coming up September 1st, which is interesting. Is what I think that was saying. It looked like they were basically saying like, oh yeah, in September 1st you will have the Inhumans movie, which is like, I wasn't expecting that to come out this soon. I thought that got pushed, like, obviously it was like taken off the schedule and then kind of put back up and pushed back. I thought that wasn't coming out till like 2018. So have they pushed that up now? And then also like they were talking about like the Inhumans TV show. So it's like, is it no longer going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D? Is it going to be Inhumans now? Or is this like Inhumans? Is this going to become the Inhumans show? Which is like, it was already kind of the discussion that, oh, this was becoming the Inhumans. So because it's like, well, would they really need to do the movie anymore when they've already got this? It's something I ended up talking about in a video, which you probably won't watch the video until next week. And the reason why I say that is because like it won't be going up until next week. I still have to like edit it, but I filmed it today. Yeah, it's officially like midnight now. So like yesterday I filmed it, but nevertheless, the point is like I kind of went into that whole thing of like where do Inhumans fall in its cold case because you have Inhumans and Agents of Shield, but obviously you know the whole MCU not going to like everything's connected, but it's not connected. So obviously. I kind of went into a whole conversation about it. I'll kind of elaborate. Obviously, in the video, I'll elaborate a lot more. But the fact of the matter is, it's like obviously you're not going to see people like Daisy and Yo-Yo in the exact two Inhumans I pulled from too. I mean, one of the most prominent ones that are amongst the main cast. So obviously I pulled from them again, but nevertheless, you won't see them in the movies. I don't think you would. I would like to, but like I said, it's a whole commitment. You'd have to watch the entirety of the show, become familiar with them. You'd have to watch an entire TV series just to watch a movie. So that's the whole thing about it. So I'm very curious to find out what that means. Like, is it supposed to be like, because they didn't really give any notice about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's why I'm like, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. becoming the Inhuman show? What is that whole deal? Like I said, I'll probably have to look into it a little bit more later on tonight. But I hope that this is just them being like, yeah, there's going to be a Inhuman show as well. Because remember, they're supposed to be the whole most wanted Marvel's most wanted, but that didn't pan out. So, like I said, we'll just have to wait and see what that whole situation means. What this final part of this episode meant. Overall, a fantastic, just very, very, very good season finale, and I'm just very eager to see what possibly season 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if not season 1 of Inhumans, is all about. Not unless that's going to be like the subtitle. Like the subtitle of this season. Well, the first half of the season was. Well, I mean, yeah, the first half was Vengeance, and the second half was LMD. So, well, then, and obviously, like, the framework made it turn into Agents of Hydra. So, maybe that's going to be the next one. Maybe it's like Inhumans of S.H.I.E.L.D., something like that. We'll just, like I said, we have to wait and see. Because there's also another thing, too, because obviously May heard the conversation between Robbie and Coulson. Was like, well, what does that mean? Like, as they said, like, no matter what the price is, we're going to pay it together. Because Fitz had got it in his head. He's like, I'm going to take the blame for this crime and everything. Which are like, no, you're not going to do that because this isn't on you. We're all played a part in this. Because Daisy knows so more so than anyone. She basically brings up her example of like, basically at the end of season 3, she ran away. Wanted to take the blame and handle everything on her own, but it didn't work out that way. And the fact of the matter is, she realizes where she needs to be right now. And it's like, and that's what, her family is like. So Fitz, you're not in this alone. We're all going to be a part of this. The price, we'll pay whatever price it is together, which to me is kind of bringing back to like, what was the price for Coulson? Is it his life? Like, is it a warning? Was that what, like, was it there to warn Coulson about whatever is coming, and that's what this whole space situation is about? Like I said, I don't know. Don't even know where to begin to start guessing about it. I'm sure there's a lot of other people like, oh, this might be this, and that. Like, we'll just have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.